So each year during the Holocaust Study Tour, the perspectives of locals and locals of the places that we visit certainly inform what we understand about the experience. And each year it's very different. This year was the 18th trip. And even though each year we might meet some of the same people, the history sort of evolves or changes as we visit these places. In Berlin, we had the opportunity again to meet Mohammed and Sanaz and learn how well they're doing, how many more years they have left of high school, which is 2 more years, and how much they've assimilated and ultimately are seeking permanent refugee status. And through that interaction, the students learn firsthand what it really means to be a refugee in a country in modern times. And without those interactions and without those opportunities, this would become a paragraph that they read in a current events section of a classroom. And that's why these interactions are so very important. And as we go throughout the trip, we've made a lot of partnerships with local communities. And in those local communities, like a community like Rabka in Poland, where each year for the past 3 years that we visited, the story of the nuns who took care of the graves of Jews that were murdered in this interrogation center has evolved, because a local man, Narcissus, who's an electrician, has taken on this project. And the reason he took on this project was because he lives in a house that was a former mikveh. And as a result of him being sort of the local historian, he's unearthed the steps to where the synagogue once stood, and he's worked with the mayor to preserve this site and ultimately to find the real true facts of the story, which each year we visit, they unpack a different layer. This year we came to learn that the nuns were not responsible for the burials, but they were responsible for finding local Jews to bury them in the proper customs. The story still is a little fuzzy in terms of how the graves were maintained post-Holocaust period, but these individuals are the ones that work towards that preservation. And it is hopeful that when we go back next year, they will have established the opportunity to make a museum out of one of these places. So each year, so much changes.
Are the children of Ladice too, and like it kind of gets me like mad that it started over a rumor, because it started because I think Camilla told me because some guy didn't want to talk to a girl anymore, right? So he said like because of the assassination I have to go in hiding, and then that's what caused it. And then like if you look at the statues, like the kids' faces were based off of the actual kids' faces, so you know you're not just looking at a statue. You're like looking at the kid, and like looking at the kids, like how little they were, and like the one statue where like the little kid is holding another, like an older kid's finger, it's like that's the same way my little sister like holds my finger to like cross the street. So like that's depressing. And then when you're done looking at the statue, if you turn around, you're looking at a valley where it's like peaceful, like something so tragic happened some place that's like so nice.
Looking at the valley and seeing like what Serrano said, how it was peaceful, and I couldn't believe like that happened. What the Nazis did, they didn't care. They had no remorse, and I sort of made that connection with what happened back in my home country, Colombia, with how back in the 80s and the 90s, how the guerrilla or the guerrillas in English would go into towns and just take kids or kill kids, and I sort of made that connection to that.
I said pretty much the same thing as Brian because I have two brothers, and like seeing all the kids that died reminded me of them and like how we used to be kids and you didn't really know what was gonna happen, but like those kids never expected to have to leave their town, and then they were all killed, and like it just showed that like the Nazis had no remorse for what they were doing. They just did it.
So this year was our 10th year that we visited Tresice and Olomouc. And in the 10th year, what has come to light is that the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in this area have really become the ones, along with the local mayor and community members, to continue to preserve the hideouts. Not only preserve them and take care of them and maintain them, but also to be responsible for the education. And this year we had the opportunity to celebrate a dinner with the Scouts, which was really quite wonderful. And at that dinner, the Scouts had put on an exhibition of all the years that we had been there. And in that exhibition, they had laminated copies of each year our trip books. And not only are they learning about the history, but they're actually spending time reflecting on what we learned from the trip and making it part of their archives for their learning. And it's just been a great opportunity to work with them for this 10 years.
The two things that stood out to me from yesterday and today was the singing. When the Scouts sang to us in the forest. Like, I recognize that song, like I've heard it before, but it was really interesting to me that they sing it when another Scout dies. That was really interesting.
They say it when something bad happens, and when, cause like I've heard it like when I went to camping, they sung it, and it's like something to remember like when someone dies or something like that. It's all about remembrance.
What stuck with me was how the kids in Tresice were like stepping forward and like trying to teach their community about like what was going on, because I felt like some of the older people in that town really didn't understand what they had there, and the the Boy Scout leader is helping these kids like learn what happened in their town and learn how to teach people in their town what was going on. And that stuck with me.
As a result of that, this was our 10th visit to Olomouc. And this year, each year we go to Olomouc in this small Jewish community. The head of the Jewish community, Peter Papasak, has always had something new to tell us and new to share with us. And this year the students had an opportunity to see our Torah scroll that had been returned to the community this year. And that was really a special moment, because there was a time when that did not exist, and they knew that these scrolls from Olomouc were somewhere, but they weren't able to locate them. And it was just this past year that had changed, and this was something new that he was able to show the students, which was quite a great experience.
Ucz się dziecko polskiej mowy. To przed domem to są groby. Małe groby, wielki cmentarz. Taki jest twój elementarz. Ustawiły się w szeregu czarne groby w brudnym śniegu. Na Warszawie rok żałoby. Ucz się dziecko polskiej mowy. Pod zwaloną kamienicą leży upiór z upiorzycą. Wyją małe upiorzęta. Zapamiętasz, zapamiętam. Nocą gniewnie przez sen krzyczysz. Straszne ptaki w niebie liczysz. Rano w ziemi rozporanej szukasz wiązki oderwanej. Ucz się mogił, gruzów ucz się, z upiorami siądź przy uczcie. Świat potężny, świat plugawy. Pieśń warszawskich dzieci zawy. Pieśń warszawskich dzieci zawy.
Dziękujemy bardzo. Brawa się należą, ponieważ...
So this was our 4th year visiting Dubrovnik Tarnowska, and again we were fortunate that this was the day of Yom HaShoah, and the teachers were able to organize their annual program, which I believe this year was the 18th program that they had done, in which local schools had competed in a theater arts competition to commemorate Jewish life before the war, which was absolutely incredible. And not only did we get a chance to participate in that, it was a very busy day in this town. It was also the commemoration of the Katyn massacre, which during our 2009 trip, we had the opportunity to understand the history of the Katyn, because at that time, the entire cabinet of the Polish government went to Russia to commemorate these massacres that took place against Polish soldiers, which for many years it was thought that the Nazis had killed these soldiers, but it really revealed many years later that it was Russian soldiers. And this commemoration was really a reconciliation between the two countries. And so each year in these Polish towns, they commemorate the history of Katyn. And during that day, along with the mayor and the superintendent and the principal and all the students in the town, we actually marched in a commemorative parade with these students. And at the same time, we also got to work with the young students on a cultural exchange about our schools, the students from Poland and the students from the United States. And these are the kinds of opportunities that inform perspective, inform their understanding of what it really is like to live in these places, and to live in places that have this kind of history. And these are the young people, our young people and their young people, that are going to be responsible for future generations. So it is this kind of collaboration and mutual understanding that's really important for student learning.
So what I took from the last 2 days were how people just want to remember, because like you like wanted to create the memorial for Otto Wolff, so you put in the effort and did all of that for it. And today when we were at the synagogue, the lady was telling us how 3 teachers went against all the odds of the townspeople. They were saying, you're never going to be able to restore this building. It's never going to look the way it was. And the teachers were like, no, we want to at least try. We need to remember. We want to bring back to what this originally was. And they were able to work together, and they you made a memorial for Otto Wolff, and you, because of you and wanting to remember it, now that's there forever. And same thing with the synagogue. People are always going to be able to remember it because there's the hopeful people in the world who want to not forget what happened.
Yes, absolutely.
A little highlight from today, it would definitely have to be when Krzysztof Kaczmarski, the mayor of Dąbrowa Tarnowska, gave me his town's pin and wished me good luck and asked about my family. That was really special.
That is really special. It was very nice.
when we got there, it was like kind of like hard to like put yourself like think about like where you are, and like it just like doesn't seem real. But then when we were like standing where like the selection took place, and Mr. Barmore started like telling stories like about different families and stuff, it like got like really real to me. And like the one story he said that like really got to me was like the one where like it was like a young man or something that was with his mom and his sister, and then they got like separated, and he like yelled to them that he hoped they die, and they were like on the line for the gas chambers. That one was like really got to me. I'm sorry. And it's just like terrible to think how like the Nazis like ripped families apart so easily and stuff.
Like a common theme of like a personal reflection that they've had, and like I feel like everybody's just trying to get closure for what happened, because they want to make sure like when they connect to something, they think about their families or like little siblings or even friends, just anyone they care about. And like at least for me, like I've been told by my family that I have family who survived the Holocaust, but like I don't have the privilege of knowing that I had family who didn't. So like I don't have that closure, like to see like my grandma's maiden name was Goldstein, which is a very popular Jewish name, and to see 10 to 20 pages of people, and like I tried researching it even after my sister went on the trip, but it's also like very hard to try and find one person's name on all of those pages. So like it's just like it's hard because there's other people here too who have had relatives, and like we're all just trying to cope with it. But like
we're trying to understand something that's impossible to understand.
Throughout this trip, I'm used to all the walking, so today wasn't physically exhausting, but it was emotionally exhausting. But I thought I'd have a better understanding or feeling of empathy, but I still struggled a lot because Shane and I were saying, who are we to say we understand the circumstances of what happened? And it's something that you can't just read in a textbook. You have to be there. You have to see the masses of hair, the kitchen supplies, the glasses, to just get a better understanding. But you have to be there. It's a completely different experience.
What really got me is when we were going through like the book of names, and I was like looking up like different like names in my family, because like I know I personally have like members of my family that perished during the war. But it was like, especially when I looked up my own last name, because I feel like my last name is the section of my family that I know the least about. And as I was reading it, there were a ton of people with the same last name as me, but I found someone that had the same name as my little brother, and that made me cry, because like I couldn't imagine ever losing someone that close to me, and to think like how these families were just like ripped apart. Like I don't know how they could go through that.
Just have them like hold on to their shoes until they made the decision, because wouldn't it have been easier to just have the people like actually keep the shoes that fit them, so then they wouldn't have had to worry.
Then it would be your shoes.
That would be a human
You would want to you know, I mean, the idea was we're going to take everything that means anything to you. You said dehumanization.
Exactly.
That's exactly what they wanted to do. They didn't care that your shoes didn't fit. Remember, he said, Mr. Barmore said, you know, you had this unlimited supply of labor. So who cares if you get a blister on your shoe?
It just seems like ridiculous that they'd be willing to sacrifice like efficiency and common sense just to.
You're looking at reason.
And it was chaos when they came in, and it was selection. You know, we're seeing static pictures, a few static pictures of a selection period at Auschwitz. We don't know what it looked like on a daily basis for as long as it existed.
So it was really hard to kind of pinpoint something, just because there was so much that happened today. And I think something that really stuck with me was walking through one of the exhibitions in Auschwitz, and where it showed like the life of the Jews, and where you'd walk in and it was a dark room with projectors that would just show like videos of Jewish people before the war, and they were happy and just living their lives. And one of the next rooms that was like geography of something, murder, showed pictures of corpses and people collecting corpses and just bodies lying in the dirt, and like they looked like skeletons and just with flesh, and it was hard to really stare at that picture, even though I did, because I like couldn't help it, to just stare at those pictures and just think about the person that corpse was before, and like the thoughts that they had, because I personally have a lot of problems with like dissociation, and like what's reality and what's not, and so that really stuck with me, and I'm definitely going to think about it.
So the hardest part for me to cope with today was just how easily it was for the Nazis to separate families, and they didn't care about breaking up bonds. Like, all they cared about was labor, and if you couldn't work, they didn't care about killing you. They didn't really care. All they wanted was your stuff, and they needed labor. And I just have a big family, and we're really close, and I just feel like, I don't know, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't be able to last see my family and not know whether I'm ever going to see them again, and just be separated and expect to walk away and be okay with that. I just can't expect them. I can't understand the emotion those people were under while they were doing that. And also, it wasn't even like a calm being separated. It was, you were being rushed and you were just being yelled at by all these angry Nazi soldiers that didn't care about you. So that was just hard for me to cope with. I couldn't really understand it.
I would just like to say that I probably speak for a lot of us here when I say this, that in school, when we learn about the Holocaust, we basically just learn about the death of millions of Jews throughout Europe during the Nazis' reign. And by going on this trip, it really taught me that it's much more than that. On TV shows, movies, books, on the news, anywhere, you always hear about death, and most people think of death as something that happens every day. That's why like classmates at school would think of the Holocaust as just the death of millions of Jews. But like going on this trip, it taught me that it's more than that, a lot more than that. Like we really learned on this trip that it's more than just death would be too easy to describe it. It was really the dehumanization, the like torturing, and just like ripping the life out of innocent people. And without going on this trip, without you teaching me, I wouldn't be able to learn all this stuff and really like connect to it on a personal level. So I just want to thank you for that.